Okay, so it's time for us to dive back into some more Excalibur, and we pick up with issues number 55 and 56. Now, with this two-part story arc, we are really going to deal with the Braddock family. Let me explain, because the Braddock family is a very interesting bunch in Marvel Comics. You see, you have Brian Braddock, better known as Captain Britain. You then have Bessie Braddock, better known as Psylocke, and around this time in Marvel Comics, she had just gained a new body, not by choice. And you also have Jamie Braddock, better known as the guy who has the ability to warp reality around him. Now, like I said, they do make for a interesting bunch. And for this two-part story arc, it's kind of about them, but also some other characters as well. Let me explain. You see, when it came to Alan Davis, when he came back to work on Excalibur, he had some ideas, but he also wanted to tie up some loose ends. You see, when it came to the early days of Excalibur, when the book was actually launched back in 1988, it was done by Chris Claremont, the writer of the book, and also Alan Davis, the artist of the book. But then Chris left. Then Alan left, and you had different writers and different artists work on the book. But then over time, Alan came back. Like I said, he had some ideas, but he also wanted to tie up some loose ends because Chris kind of left a lot of things out there for other writers to work on after he left the book. And some of those writers did not do a good job or kind of ignored what Chris left behind. And so for Alan, he was the guy to finish the job. And so as we dive into the opening pages for today's video, we jump into Excalibur issue number 55, and we do pick up with Psylocke fighting against Captain Britain. Now, if you have seen my X-Men videos, you would know that she had left the X-Men for a short period of time to pay a visit to see her brother. So if you saw, I think it was X-Men issue number 12 and 13 leading into the Executioner's song, you would know that she left the school and came over here to see her brother. So when she arrived, they kind of go through their old fighting training session. And also for Psylocke, she's not her old body. She's in a new body, which kind of gives her different kind of moves to try to use on her brother. And so after a good few pages, we kind of see them go back and forth after a while. And then at the end, they kind of stop to talk. Now, this kind of leads into what I have been saying in our last few Excalibur videos. You see, we have been talking about how Captain Britain been acting when it comes to handling different kinds of situations. Because usually for Captain Britain, if something is happening, he wants to resolve things with his fists and not try to actually talk to people. And so for him, he's kind of concerned about himself. But you have Psylocke say, hey, listen, you have to remember that we come from a long line of great warriors in our family that goes all the way back into Otherworld. Now remember, Otherworld is kind of like this other dimension that is also connected to all realities across Marvel's multiverse. But also we do learn that Captain Britain's father, and also Psylocke's father as well, was actually an agent for Merlin. And remember, Merlin is a big bad guy for Captain Britain and also Excalibur. He was a big bad guy in our last huge story arc called the Anti-Phoenix. But now Merlin is gone at the moment. And so for Captain Britain, he's kind of hoping that with Merlin no longer kind of controlling the family, it gives Captain Britain and also Bessie the chance to kind of be their own people without actually being watched or being controlled by Merlin. But now we have to jump over to Nightcrawler, who's going through a more extreme kind of training than he usually does. And so while going through this training, he's then confronted by Kitty Pryde and also Megan. Now, for Kitty Pryde and Megan, they want to know, is Nightcrawler okay? Because there was a point in time where Nightcrawler was just gone between this story and the last one, and he appeared in a 3-part story arc with Wolverine over in the Marvel Comics Presents series. Now, unfortunately, I was not not really able to find those books to actually read them, but apparently something happened with Nightcrawler in Germany. And we're not told in this book right here. But for Nightcrawler, he does not want to talk about it at all. And for Kitty Pryde, it's not okay. Because again, Nightcrawler, Kitty Pryde, they have been friends for a very long time in X-Men comics. They have each other's backs. But for Nightcrawler, right now, he just does not want to talk about it and get ready for the big party or housewarming party they're about to throw here in a few hours. Now, there is another character I do want to talk about, and that would be Kai Lun. Now, Kai Lun is actually leaving the book, but I want to use him as an example of what Alan Davis is trying to do here, because Kai Lun was one of those characters that Chris Claremont had created in the early days of Excalibur. But then after creating the kid, well, he did nothing with the character. And so the book kind of moved on without Kai Lun. You see, when it came to young Kai Lun, when he was a young boy, he found Widget. Now remember, Widget has the ability to open up portals into other realities. And so for Kai Lun, he fell through one of those portals. And when he did, he was in a different reality for many years. Now, I should say that time moves different in that reality because in the main Marvel universe, he was only gone for 1 year. But in that other reality, many years have passed by. And so when he came back to this reality, one, he was now a young adult, and two, his mutant powers had activated. And so once he was able to get revenge against the person who had killed off his loved one, he's kind of like, okay, you know what? I was able to make it back into my reality. It's now time for me to check in on my family, even though I no longer look the way I used to look back in the day. But either way, he does go back home to see his family. Now, the reason why you have our heroes throwing a housewarming party is because recently they had left the lighthouse that they were staying in. And so they had moved into, well, Braddock Manor, the home for Brian, Bessie, and Jamie over the years. And so with the team now being there, they decided to throw a housewarming party and invite all the characters that they had worked with while being an official team in Marvel Comics. Now, with them doing that, they also had invited Allison Stewart, the character I really do want to focus on now. And the reason why, because Allison Stewart is the twin sister to Alistair Stewart. Now, Alistair has been a love interest for both Kitty Pryde and also Rachel Summers. But for Allison, well, she was put in charge of the WHO organization. Now, WHO stands for Weird Happening Organization. And basically, they go around the world to investigate weird things happening, well, around the world. And so for Allison, she was in charge, but she might lose her job. And the reason why, because supposedly she had given out information over to S.H.I.E.L.D. And that is a huge no-no because S.H.I.E.L.D. is a more American government team. And while WHO is more of a Great Britain government team. And so the whole idea that somehow S.H.I.E.L.D. was able to get supposedly vital information from WHO, you have all the fingers now being pointed at Allison. And so she might lose her job and also get arrested. But she tells her brother, like, hey, don't tell anybody else right now at the party. For right now, I just want to have a good time. I'll be down in a minute. Let me just change and I'll be there with you guys to celebrate. Now, there is another character we have to talk about, and that would be Saturnyne from Earth 794. Now, she actually first appeared back in Captain Britain issue number 2 in 1985. But here's the big catch, though. You see, she first appeared in our coverage in the early days of Excalibur, and Chris Claremont brought her in, and she is another character where he kind of said, hey, you know what? Maybe a future writer will do great things with the character. you did have a few writers kind of use her, but not really in the way it seemed that Chris was going to use her. Now, for Saturnyne, she has been in this reality for a while, but she has been pretending to be another person, and that would be Courtney Ross. Now, Courtney Ross was the ex-girlfriend to Captain Britain, and really, in the early days of Excalibur, it did seem like Courtney and Captain Britain might get back together, but then she was killed off by this Saturnyne who has been pretending to be her the entire time. And so no one truly knows that that is not Courtney Ross. That is Saturnyne. And really, she has been working behind the scenes, waiting for the right moment to attack Excalibur. And that moment is right now. Now, we also see that when she arrives at the party, she does kiss Captain Britain right in front of Megan. And Megan did not like that at all because to them, it's Courtney Ross, the ex-girlfriend to Captain Britain. Now, there is another character we have to talk about, but I'm not really going to dive too deep into that character because, well, he's not important for this two-part story arc. Just know that Ferran was a character who was supposed to be the next host of the Phoenix, and really, he was in training for years to become that great host for the Phoenix. Unfortunately, he was not chosen. That's really it. That's all you need to know. Either way, he is knocked out from behind by the bad guy of this two-part story arc. And that really begins the downfall of the night because when we jump back over to Allison, she's still in the room getting ready to go down and join the rest at the party, except out of nowhere, from behind, once again, she is attacked. Now, at first, it does seem like she was able to kind of defend herself, but that does not last that long. And it does seem like she has been killed off. Now, for Excalibur, they were able to realize that something had happened to Allison, and so they all ran up the stairs to see what exactly went down. The problem is, when they walk into the room, they find her dead body. So yes, she has been officially killed off. And you didn't have Excalibur go out of their way to hopefully find out who is the killer. And so you have different members going different ways to hopefully find that killer. But the problem is they're each taken out one by this unknown force. And also seems like there's more than one person coming after our heroes. Now, at the tail end of this section, you do have Kitty Pryde being able to escape just barely thanks to her phasing ability. And so because of that, she could be the key to save the rest of her team in the next chapter. The last three members of the team to still be up is Captain Britain, Psylocke, and also Megan. Now, Psylocke and Megan, they are easily taken out. Captain Britain was hit, but because he's very durable, he was kind of able to take that hit and continue to walk around the actual place. Now, his main goal is to find Courtney Ross because he saw everyone else except for her. And that leads into him that Courtney Ross was never Courtney Ross. That in reality, it was Saturnyne from Earth 794. And she's here to get revenge against Captain Britain. And I will explain more of that as we go through the next chapter. But then, once you have Captain Britain find out that it was actually Saturnyne, he's also confronted by his evil big brother, Jamie Braddock, who has the ability to warp reality. Now, as we dive into Excalibur issue number 56, we do pick up with the whole entire manor now being controlled by Saturnyne. We also learn that she was able to use the money that she had gained in this reality to kind of purchase a small army of people to actually work for her. Now, there is a tad bit more to that story, but I will explain more about that here in a moment. Now, for the rest of Excalibur, minus Kitty Pryde and also Captain Britain, they're being constantly tortured by Jamie Braddock. Now, for Brian Braddock, Captain Britain, he has been drugged to the point where he is now following all her commands because, well, Saturnyne has this weird kind of interest in Captain Britain. Now, she does tell her soldiers like, hey, you need to find Kitty Pryde because Kitty Pryde has the ability to ruin everything for us. And so now you had those soldiers begin to go look for her. And really, Kitty Pryde was nearby. She overheard everything. But for Kitty Pryde, she's kind of wondering, like, what can she do? Now, on top of that, she's also trying to still recover after being attacked by Jamie earlier and only barely escaping from his actual powers. And so for Kitty Pryde, once she'll be completely healed, she should go forward into trying to save the rest of her team. Now, like I said earlier, unfortunately, for the other members of Excalibur, they're being tortured by Jamie Braddock and his reality warping abilities, changing their bodies in all types of different ways. Now, here's a big catch. Psylocke is able to connect her mind over to the mind of Brian Braddock, Captain Britain, because we have to remember that they are twins. And because of that, they have a strong connection. And so she was able to connect her mind to her brother. And this kind of leads us into a quick rundown on Saturnyne to get a better idea of who this character actually is and what is her endgame. Now we have to start off with her actual origin here. So for Opaluna Saturnyne, she actually first appeared, like I said earlier, in Captain Britain issue number 2. Now, like I said earlier as well, she's from Earth 394. Now, in that reality, she was a big-time dictator. She ruled over the entire world. She also was very in love with the Captain Britain in that reality. Now, here's the catch. That Captain Britain and our Captain Britain has switched places, and it led to that Captain Britain trying to assault Psylocke, and Psylocke was able to kill him off. Now, the death of her Captain Britain and also TechNet, this mercenary group, killing off a few of her soldiers, you had Opaluna Saturnyne go crazy to the point where she began to kill off all of her subjects. And so, unfortunately, you had another Captain Britain be sent over from a different reality to technically arrest her, to stop her, and locked her away. Now, she was locked away, but then she was able to break free. Now, once she was able to break free, she made her way over to the main Marvel Universe reality, where she was able to pretend to be Courtney Ross after killing Courtney Ross off and replacing her in the main Marvel Universe. Now, using the power that Courtney had, she was able to kind of make some moves behind the scene. For example, when it came to Opaluna Saturnyne, she knew that in every single reality across Marvel Multiverse, that Jamie Braddock would have the ability to warp reality. And so when she came to this reality, she had to find Jamie, but to also kind of help him break free and learn about his mutant ability. Now, once she was able to break Jamie free and help him learn more about his mutant ability, she needed an army. And that led into her next part of her plan. You see, there was a character known as Nigel. And originally, Nigel hated Courtney Ross because he lost his chance to get a promotion at the bank they were working at. When Courtney Ross was killed off and replaced by Saturnyne, she was able to make Nigel kind of fall in love with her and do almost anything she said. And so when it came to Nigel, you had Jamie use his reality warping abilities to change Nigel into the character known as Vixen. Now, Vixen was a huge crime lord in Great Britain. She had connections. But with her removed and Nigel pretending to be her, they were able to use her connections to build up a small army to use. And so that explains why she has soldiers right now at the manor. Now, while we're going through this whole huge breakdown on the origin of Saturnyne, while you have Bessie in the mind of Brian, they are then confronted by Jamie, who was able to break the connection, and he then continues to torture his own sister by using his reality warping abilities. Now, when we jump back over to Kitty Pryde, we actually see Kitty Pryde begin her plan to, try to help out the other members of Excalibur. She does run into a few guards or soldiers who work for Saturnyne, but she was able to kind of deal with them very quickly and move on with her plan. Now, I kind of want to go ahead and get to the ending of this book and kind of get ready for the next story arc we're going to cover when it comes to Excalibur. But you do have Kitty Pryde try her best to get the jump on Jamie. The problem is that, well, Jamie knew that sooner or later that Kitty Pryde would be there. And so he was able to get the jump on her. Now, with him being able to do that, you didn't have Jamie say, you know what? I am going to use my powers on you. But then Megan steps in. Now, Megan at first was being tortured by Jamie. But here comes the big catch. You see, for Megan, she has the ability to shapeshift, and that is really important. The reason why, because for Jamie, he can warp reality, but the way he does it is very interesting. He has to pull the strings of reality to actually change it. But the problem is for Megan, she can constantly change her body, and so those strings are not bound to her at all. And the only reason why he was able to torture her at first, because she was also drugged like the rest of Excalibur. But those drugs are no longer working on her, and his powers can no longer work on her either. And so she was able to get the jump on him and beat him down and turn the other members of Excalibur back to normal. Now, the ending of this story arc really is more of seeing our heroes fighting against Jamie, but also against Saturnyne and the small army that she has with her. And so while you have our heroes being able to go up against their enemies, you have Psylocke being able to easily take out Jamie by using her psychic knife on his mind. Now, once you have Saturnyne realize that her plan has now fallen completely apart, she instantly retreats. She tells her folks, hey, go ahead and grab Jamie and we're getting the heck out of here. And so they were able to escape, to kind of leave us wondering, when are we going to see them again? Hopefully soon, but not too soon. Now, the last couple pages are really more of our heroes giving Allison Stewart the funeral. Because remember, she died by the hands of Jamie in the first chapter. So because of that, it's our hero saying goodbye to her, but also they're kind of wondering who was framing her. Because someone said that she was giving out information over to S.H.I.E.L.D., secret government information. But you do have Nick Fury arrive. Now, when Nick arrives, he says, hey, listen, I want to tell you that is not true at all. She was not giving out any kind of information over to us. Matter of fact, the information that got leaked is so outdated, it's crazy how Great Britain is freaking out about it. Either way, she's innocent, and I have some information that could possibly help you figure out who really did leak that kind of information. And Nick walks away. And this is where we are going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, see y'all next time. Later.